The woman in leadership and social justice that I chose to research for this week was Tarna Burke. She is the organizer and founder of the Me Too movement and organization. For me, the reason I chose this was that through social media, I have been very familiar with the Me Too movement. What I knew about it was that this is a hashtag that women use in order to speak up and speak out in regards to the sexual violence or assault that they have experienced. This gives women a connection with each other, that they're not alone, a voice to what's happened. They're able to speak out, and other women I have noticed are very supportive towards them. It's something that connects them, gives them a voice, and gives them comfort in knowing maybe they're not alone. So prior to doing this research, I had no um, knowledge of who the founder was. I didn't even know about Alyssa Milano. Um, Alyssa Milano hashtagged Me Too in a Twitter post she made in regards to a famous person who was being accused of sexual assault, and she encouraged other women who had been going through similar things to hashtag Me Too. Um, Prior to this, though, Tarna Burke was the original founder of the Me Too movement, which had started back in 2006. Um, she was the organizer of an activist group, Me Too. Her goals and ideas for this group were to give women, especially younger women of color, a voice, give them a safe space to talk about sexual abuse and assault, and also give them knowledge about what that is, to be able to define that. Like I said, her goal for this group was not as large as it has turned out. It has completely superseded her expectations and thoughts. Like it said in one of the articles, her goal, her thought process was, maybe it would come about being a really cool bumper sticker. She thought, a bumper sticker of Me Too, meaning, women would be able to see this and identify with each other. It was kind of like, as she defined it, a bat signal for other women, um, to be able to connect with one another and to also speak out. So some things about Tarna Burke. Like I said, she was trying to unite voices of victims of sexual violence. Some important things about her: in 2018, she was honored at the Academy Awards. She was also named in the 100 most influential people. Um, and like I stated before, one of her main influences, not influences, one of her main um, things that was important to her was for Black women, women of color. She wanted visibility for them. She wanted those survivors and those voices to be heard, because many times those are overlooked. Even in the Surviving R. Kelly documentary, which was a three-part series that aired, she spoke on that. It was primarily women of color, minority women, who were not being heard. So what she really wanted to do was she was focusing on the racial injustice as well, as the gender injustice. Her biggest issues were racial injustice and sexual violence, um, and that was what she wanted to do. Um, and some of what led to how she got to being the Me Too organizer. She was a college counselor, and she led workshops to speak about sexual violence there. And there was a woman who shared a story, and what she really wanted to say was, Me Too. And that's where the Me Too came from. She said that she still even looks back on it this day, what she could have said to this person. Um, she has also been involved in something called Just Be Inc., which was an organization that was focused on health and well-being of women of color. Um, and this was for younger women, like I said. She wanted younger girls to be able to recognize sexual violence when it happened. One of the things she mentioned in this was a young girl, I believe it said she was 12, mentioned in this group that she was waiting for her boyfriend. The boyfriend was 21 years old. And she stated that this man had a previous girlfriend the year before, who was a young girl as well. And she stated that this was not a relationship. This is sexual violence. But these women, these young girls, did not know this. They were also exchanging stories um, in this group that they were talking about as sexual experiences rather than that this was sexual assault and violence. So some of her hopes was to um, give the knowledge and awareness to these girls about sexual violence. Um, and one of the other big issues she addressed is the believing of survivors. Oftentimes, women or girls that come out about sexual violence that has happened to them, they get questioned about the validity in their statements. They get questioned whether or not they're telling the truth when it should be the other way around. They should be being believed, and what the man is saying didn't happen. They should not be being believed. So oftentimes that is a major issue. And one of the issues with the Me Too movement now that has happened was men and even other people are taking it upon themselves to feel attacked. They are thinking that this movement, this organization, is an attack on powerful men, that they're wanting to take down powerful men, when in reality they're wanting to support the survivors, give them a voice, especially, like I said, for Black and women of color. They want to give them the resources and make them visible and give them the voice and the power to be heard. Going back to the actual how the Me Too movement came about. It actually started from the celebrity Alyssa Milano, like I stated, and within that week alone, there were 12 million hashtags. Excuse me. Hashtagging Me Too. And since then, she has given Me Too workshops. Excuse me. And so at the first workshop, at the end of it, she gave out a survey, and she instructed the girls to write on the paper "Me Too" if they needed support or were going through similar stuff. And they were expecting a few papers to have that on it. It was shocking for them to find out 20 out of the 30 papers had Me Too written on it. So this is another thing that she addresses, is the number and the amount of sexual assault and violence is extremely high. And I know for me personally, I was amazed by how many women I saw through social media using the hashtag Me Too. Well, I mean, in one way I was amazed, but also it's crazy as a woman. I would say almost all of my female friends, when we talk about stuff like this, have experienced sexual violence and assault. I know for me personally, this is something that has happened not only once in my lifetime, and that just it's heartbreaking that this happens to women. It really is. I do get it. I mean, I don't get it, but I know the numbers are high. That's what I mean. I can see how the numbers are high. Like I said, almost all women I talk to have experienced this. And what Tarana Burke is doing is giving women a tool, just even though it's a hashtag, she's doing speeches, she's doing workshops, she's organizing this stuff. But this hashtag is allowing for women to speak up and speak out. And I think it's crazy to some to see how high the numbers are. I mean, I get it, but just the amount of it is, even for me as someone who does get it and understands it and sees it, it's just mind blowing. And but it's also empowering in a way, because kind of, at least for me, I even though I didn't do the hashtag, it kind of gave me the sense of, feeling connected, feeling okay, a little bit empowering to know that I could speak up against this and I would have women's support if I needed to. One of the other important things that she talks about is, so what happens from here? And also, the why is all this happening? And I think that's important to look at. That's another piece to this, is what happens from here to the women that she brings about. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the next, at least decade, comes about in regards to these high numbers of sexual assault. And now that women are speaking out, men are, these men that have done this to women are losing their jobs. They are going to jail. They are being held accountable for their actions. And I think the more women we have speaking out against this, the more strong women leaders that we have organizing workshops for people to speak out against this, to give us information, to give women of color the resources they need to be able to be heard, to be able to be visible, to be able to have safe spaces for them to go and talk about what is happening. This stuff that is needed. And, in one of the articles, it talks about a culture shock. This movement gave way to a new light of what is going on. People are being enlightened, and it's going to be so interesting to see about what happens from here, because we've really put a spotlight on sexual assault and harassment, and specifically for women of color. I mean, it goes for everybody, but specifically for the women who have felt underheard, underrepresented, and as a whole, it's going to be really interesting to see to what happens next. It was really interesting researching her. She came from a small, family in the Bronx. She wasn't poor, but she had to work for where she came. And then to see all of her really hard work in social justice and working on racial issues come to be such a powerful movement is inspiring. She worked since she was young. It said she was on like a leadership type committee that talked about voting, and then she did work when she was in college. She has always tried to work with women to deal with some of these issues. And then to see her today being the face of a huge movement, like I said, in a week got 12 million hashtags, is so powerful and moving. Her hard work just, her hard work allowed so many women to be empowered. The other thing that I was really thinking about during my research on her was the idea of power, and also, like I said, prior to doing my research, I didn't know who she was. I didn't even know I knew who Alyssa Milano was, but I didn't know she was the one that started it. It really made me think of the other discussion we had about power. It really made me think, this is power too. She's not the one dictating what we say, what we do as women, but she is giving us a tool for us to be powerful on our own, for us to be able to speak up for ourselves, to give us that empowerment. She's empowering women, and especially women, like I said, of color, minority groups. She's giving them the power. So that to me really spoke to me and kind of connected these weeks as well. And that is all I have. Thank you.